Everything, everything gonna be all right this morning.
Today's episode of the program is sponsored by My Patriot Supply. Friends, we're facing more threats than ever before. When our leaders warn of global food shortages, including here in the U.S., it's time to act. Go to preparewithitsme.com and get your long-term emergency food storage from My Patriot Supply while you can. We don't know when more empty shelves may hit, so now is the best time to act. My Patriot Supply is by far the number one preparedness company to rely on, with millions of satisfied customers this past year. Act quickly and save $150 on vital 3-month emergency food kit. This provides breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, and snacks totaling over 2,000 calories a day. Every single family in America should have at least one 3-month supply of food per person. Now you can go to preparewithitsme.com, save $150 on your 3-month food kit. That's preparewithitsme.com. Your order ships quickly and arrives in unmarked boxes for your privacy. Don't wait any longer, gang. Go to preparewithitsme.com. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And now, the show.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, another episode for the archives of It's Me Speaking to You, Jeffrey Wilson, riding shotgun with you. And I'm so stoked to talk to this gentleman. I met this man, what was it? God, it was a few years ago. Penthouse Panels, an event that my man Chris Maltzberger and Mike Burnson used to put on up in Chicago at the penthouse of the Gentlemen's Cooperative, and we had a chance to chop it up, and we're back here to do a little bit more fuller conversation. He stays busy. He is the El Jefe, the creator, founder, CEO of Billy Bob Products, BillyBobProducts.com, Billy Bob Teeth. BillyBobProducts.com is where you can go find all the stuff that he's got, and there's plenty. And not only want to talk about, the success of his business, but, the fact that he's reaped so many incredible benefits from the success of his business. And we're going to get into it, and that will include his pet black bear named Nibbles. But don't let me get too ahead of myself. Jonah White, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm hanging in there like a hair on a biscuit today, Jeff, and that's barely hanging in there, but I'm hanging in strong.
Well, that's all we can do, man. And as we have this conversation, not to get started out too dark, peace and condolences to all the people who've been affected by the crazy stuff that's still going on in New York right now, a shooting. So count your blessings, ladies and gentlemen. Count your blessings. Like I said, bro, you have a very, very successful company, and like I said, we can get into how successful it has become, what you've been able to do with it, but I've always been fascinated by people who do really cool stuff like you're doing. Where did this start? Where was the seed planted for Billy Bob Products? And I'm sure many people have seen these. I mean, these teeth and all the different products you offer, they're a little bit of everywhere now, but when did this bug bite you, and when was the seed planted, my friend?
Oh, man, you ask these tough questions. So, well, to start, my mom and my dad met in jail in Cheyenne, Wyoming, at a Air Force missile base. They got arrested doing a peaceful protest, 1958 August, and protests back then aren't like a protest now.
No.
And this was actually peaceful, what they were doing, and but anyway, they met, and I was created about 11 years later, and I just kind of grew up in this alternate lifestyle. My parents lived on Indian reservations. My dad went to reservation school in Oklahoma, and my idols growing up were Native Americans mostly. And, I grew up, obviously I look in the mirror and I see a white person. But at night, I close my eyes and I see, something different. Not that I'm ashamed to be white, because I'm not. I think everyone needs to be proud of themselves.
Yes.
And I think everybody needs to be proud of what their forefathers went through to give them the life they have right now. And people tend to want to forget about that. But I grew up, kind of wanting to do things differently, and wanting, all the people are doing it this way, I want to do it this way. And I think it kind of, to circle back to your question, I think it comes from the upbringing that I had. My parents were very resourceful in a lot of ways, and in other ways, not so much, or actually not any. And they had incredible strengths and incredible weaknesses. And I grew up kind of watching them, saying, man, that's awesome. This is incredible. We caught a frog and we're eating it for dinner. and then other times I would be like, when I grow up, I don't want to do things this way. I was always questioning. I think that's a good trait that I have, that I don't know where I got it from, because my parents, they questioned things a lot, but they didn't question themselves a lot. And my parents took themselves very seriously. And I tend to not do that quite so much. Mm-hmm. I'm a hybrid, I've had to adapt with very, very little. And people, the TV show Survivor is like a big hit, but that's kind of the way I've been going through my whole life. I've always had to end up somewhere with nothing and figure out how to make it, or, I say Survivor. I had a TV show on Discovery Channel, and my show came out the same time. I'm thinking of Naked and Afraid. Actually, my TV show came out the same time that one did. And so they were always talking to me about Naked and Afraid, because some of the same producers and showrunners I had work on that show also.
Well, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Les Stroud, who stars in Survivor Man. He kind of started that, and I've always found that fascinating, the way he can just make miracles out of just the limited things. I mean, that's where I first learned about what a lean-to was, because, it's just amazing what people could do being resourceful, like you said.
Well, it's funny because I don't watch TV. I had my own TV show on for over a year, and there was many episodes I never even saw. I worked so hard on. I worked so hard on creating these episodes, I should say. But honestly, I actually know who that guy is you just mentioned, and he's one of the few that I thought, this guy's the real deal. I like the way he speaks. I like the way he sees things. I've actually broke that guy down in my head to think, why is he successful, and his approach to what he's doing. And I think I did that before I had my TV show, kind of studying what other people were doing and what was making them successful.
When he kind of blew the lid off the whole, because he was one of the OGs that wasn't doing kind of like canned scenes. Whereas, not to mention any names, but there's a lot of shows out there, and I've worked in TV and production, so a lot of reality shows, the last thing they are is real. And he used to get a lot of flack from executive producers and producers because he wouldn't can stuff. He's like, no, I'm going to go out there with me, myself, my camera, and bring you back some hot heat.
Yes. Yeah, no, he was real, and Hollywood doesn't like that word.
Yeah. Yeah.
They make a lot of money off it, but deep down they don't like it at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's me, Jeffrey. I'm probably the only guy you've had on your show that chose to live in a cave for a while, and started a company, and I make products and sell products. And
well, I've always been a fan of that, Jonah. People who, the road less traveled is that way for a reason. And I think you did pick up a lot of your critical thinking, your contrarian thinking from your parents, and just going against the grain. And there's nothing wrong with that, man. That's fortune favors the bold. And you clearly, in order to do what you've done, you've had to step out of the box and do it Frank Sinatra style, your way.
Yeah, I'll tell you something interesting that your listeners might get a kick out of. I've invented several hundred different things that I've actually brought to market. Now, people can say I'm an inventor and I've invented whatever and I'm an entrepreneur, but maybe only 1 out of 500 of these people has actually made something and brought it to market. And then the mortality rate goes down way, way more, even that they actually were financially survivable with this item, and it and they made money from it, and they kept going. But anyway, the funnel gets really small. But anyway, I've always wanted to do my own thing, and when I would invent things, I would when I break an item down and invent it, I figure out what's the market for this? Who do I think would be the person to buy this? How much would they pay for this? When would they buy it? What time of the year? What sort of stores would sell this? And what would distribution look like? And then what would manufacturing look like of this thing? Am I a good company to make this or not? Or do I have good sources for this? And then what's it going to cost for me to make this thing? And then what am I going to sell this thing for? And then in the end, is this thing going to be commercially viable or not? And if it is, about what's the upside? Like how many units could I sell if I did a good job? How many items would I sell if I did an okay job? If I failed, how much would I do? I kind of, I have a thought process that I break down everything that comes down my way that I'm thinking about doing or not. And I've always, of the hundreds and hundreds of items I've done for the most part, everything is things I've created or my best friend created. My company's named Billy Bob Products, that comes from Billy Bob Teeth. And I didn't actually invent the teeth. My best friend did in dental school in 1993 is when he invented them.
Right. I remember you told me that. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't actually invent them. Everybody thinks because I'm the owner of the company I invented them. I didn't. He invented them. And I talked him into making the thing into an item that we would sell. And at the time, I was living at home with my parents' house. So I had graduated college just a little over a year before this. And I didn't even have a car. My net worth was $400 when I started the company with my best friend. But anyway, since that day, I've invented myself hundreds of items, got lots and lots of patents, and I've created all these things that are like, wow, nobody's ever seen something like this before. This really interests me. And that's been kind of my template of my company. And, the difficult part of this, nothing's perfect. The difficult part of this is that when I'm showing buyers, it goes over their head most of the time because they're like, man, we don't buy anything like this. Well, no kidding. I got a patent on it, right? I invented this. This whole new category, And buyers are typically scared to be an innovator. They want to imitate. They want to do what everybody else is doing, just 50 cents cheaper. So they don't have much guts and they don't last very long typically. But anyway, so for over 20 years, almost 100% of the things that I've done, I've created myself and invented and brought to market. And then I go to trade shows and go meet buyers, and I fly all over the world and sell stuff everywhere and figure out the right factory to make it for me. And I have my own shipping department here in Illinois. But anyway, I just came up with an idea. Last weekend in Las Vegas with a friend of mine. I was attending a trade show, and a friend of mine in business came up with an idea, and I'm not going to tell you about the idea and go into all of that, but he came up with this idea, and I spun it real quick in my head, about 5 seconds. I figured out a better way to make this thing work than what he had envisioned. A cheaper, better, easier way to merchandise it, higher price point. And in real time, as I'm in the car with him, I messaged my in-house person that does all my R&D, does my graphics and vendor compliance and testing and all this. One of my smart guys that I have that works for me. I told him what it was and asked him to look up to see if a trademark for it was available, because there's a really good name for it. And so he looked it up, and the trademark, there was one registered for it, and it had been abandoned in 2003. And somebody made this exact same item, or several people probably, years gone by, and they abandoned it because they failed. And you know what, Jeff, it got me excited, because I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go against my own template. I'm going to step out of the company. I'm going to make an item that somebody else has already failed at making, or 2 or 3 companies have failed at making it. I'm going to make it. And so I'm throwing my hat in the ring where others have failed. I don't know, it's kind of proving it to myself. It's kind of neat sometimes to step out of your comfort zone, even though my comfort zone's always been to do something no one else had ever done before, which is not comfort for 99% of the population. So it's kind of good to test yourself. It's kind of good to put yourself in uncharted waters. It's kind of a little hardship is good, to prove to yourself, your worth and how good you are. And anyway, so I'm doing that right now with another item. So I've got one of my sales girls right to my left right now, about 20 feet from me. She's been trying to source the item in the U.S. I spoke to another manufacturer. I mean, I've got real boots on the ground researching this item. But anyway,
I think, I mean, not to cut you, but I think that's
I'll tell you
huge.
something.
That's hugely important because I don't look at, and people could call things a failure or, a mistake. I mean, and what you did is you jumped, they look at it as a failure and they swung the white flag and they were done. That was an opportunity to learn from you. What did they do wrong so you could make it successful? And obviously you're still in the process of it, but I think that's a huge thing with not just business, anything. Nothing's a failure. Nothing's a mistake. It's just an opportunity to learn.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And, and the reality is that, I'm looking in a crystal ball. I'm set up so much better than what they were. Whoever these people were, I don't know who they were, that failed at trying to do the exact same thing that I'm trying to do. I'm sure I have better resources. I'm sure I have better connections. I'm sure I'm going to do a much better job of merchandising and promoting and showing it to the right customers. I'm sure I'm going to do these things.
Right.
But the reality is I'm trying something purposefully that someone else has already failed at. And probably multiple companies have failed at it. And where in 10 years ago, myself as an entrepreneur and a business owner, I would have said, no, somebody else already tried that. That's not what I do. That's not my template. I invent things that no one else has done. And I would have passed at this opportunity on to other things. And I'm not saying that that's wrong or right. I'm just saying that's the way it was.
Right.
But the reality is that I've kind of changed as a business owner. And I'm actually kind of excited to go after something. And when I start getting purchase orders for this item, I'm going to feel like I climbed a mountain that other people failed on. So it's even more of an achievement for me. So
For sure.
Yeah, so that's a real struggle that I'm doing right now in real time. So yeah, I literally have people in the same room I'm sitting here talking to you. Actually, they're listening to me right now. They're sourcing this right now. I'm trying to find multiple manufacturers in the U.S. that can make it for me and see who the best one is to try to do it with.
Well, and that's another point too, man. I mean, it very rarely is something like this done by yourself. What, if you don't mind, just speak to how important the assembly of the right team is to do something like you've done.
Well, I mean, I've been involved in business for 25 years, something like this, and the first person I recruited to work for me was my mother. So like
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. She was my CFO, and she could type, and she had a computer, and she had a printer, and I mean, without that, I mean, my company wouldn't have made it. It wouldn't have existed. So it all. I didn't go get venture capital money. Not that that was an option. It wasn't. I'd get, a whole bunch of people to lend me $1 million and then go do it the right way. That college teaches us to do it. And I didn't, I would not have made it through the second season had I tried that way. I'm confident. I mean, it took me 3 years to get a credit card terminal so I could even accept credit cards. I mean, it was a very tough road that I have. I mean, I started the business in my parents' log cabin, about 3 miles from where I'm talking to you on the phone right now. So it's when people always tell me, or they don't, people say, well, weren't you afraid of failing when you started? And, to be honest, it never even crossed my mind failing, but in years gone by afterwards, I thought about that when the more and more people would ask me. And, like I said, I started the company with $400, and I'd go to a bar and one night with my buddy, and I could sell $200 worth of Billy Bob teeth, and I could increase my net worth by 50% in one night at the Rusty's bar in Edwardsville. So I mean, it's like, how do you fail when you can increase your net worth on an average night? Like, how does that lead to failure? And I mean, my mom was my CFO. How do you fail? Like my venture capital money was me selling my 45 Smith & Wesson and for $400. That was my startup capital. It was actually a Springfield Armory. Sorry about that.
Well, no, and I can only imagine, it's never smooth sailing. There's no overnight successes, and I can only imagine, you kind of alluded to them, the amount of obstacles and honestly, the opportunities to quit, or like, oh, this is too much, that you've had to go through. But obviously, there's a certain level of resilience and perseverance you have to do what you've done. So there's no shortage of obstacles you've overcome, obviously.
No, but that's why it works, because I've been through the tough times, and then it's when it gets easy, it gets easy. The market right now is so easy. There's more money now than there's ever been. If you're still in business, you're in tall cotton here as far as business goes.
Well, and I don't know if you exactly have a brick and mortar, but obviously the last couple of years with COVID and everything, everybody's buying online, and that's a lot of what the service you provide. You can get all these products online.
Yeah, but I sell to over 5,000, probably 6,000 brick and mortar stores right now.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, it's just you sell to the brick and mortar stores that don't get shut down.
Right, and
so,
that's
my company. I have. You don't understand. I'm not your typical business owner. Like, I started this company and I didn't plan for a plan B. Like, I didn't plan, and I was living in a cave. I was living in an actual cave. Like, Les Stroud would have been proud of me if he just saw how I started my business. Like, I literally was living in a cave when I started it, and my thoughts at night looking into the fire was always, when it gets hot, when it gets tough and hard, what do I do? And I'm saying this when I'm starting a business with $400.
It was already hard.
Yeah, well, it didn't seem like it to me, but I was looking at like the worst case scenario, and I've gone through worst case scenarios a couple times here, but the reality is that you need to be prepared for the worst, so that you don't get let down. And if you're smart, not that I'm smart, but I think a lot, and I try a lot of things. I make mistakes, but I learn from them. I don't know that that's smart. That's just survival, I guess. But you prepare yourself for hardship and you embrace it. And then whenever it gets easy, my God, this is so easy. Well, these other people, they think it's going to be easy all the time.
Yeah.
And then they make these promises, and they borrow this money, and they do these things, and if it's not easy, lo and behold, my God, they're wanting to shoot themselves or jump off a cliff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So much of it's planning and just trying to, there's, like I said, there's no easy answers out there. Everything's all encompassing. Everything's connected. One thing leads to the other, which leads to the other. And, our country doesn't, these people don't understand it. They think that everything is so simple and one-dimensional, and it's not. Only maybe 50% of what they're looking at is actually one-dimensional. Everything else is 2 or 3 dimensions, and the stuff that's really important is like 4 or 5, and these people don't think past 2.
Yeah.
And they don't. Number 3 exists, and it's insane. People are so stupid. They don't understand everything's connected. That if your foot hurts, it might not be a problem with your foot. It might be a problem with your lower back.
Right.
But they can't grasp that concept. Well, it's the same thing with your business. Your business is just like your foot. You have a problem with supply chains. Well, it might not be your factory. It might be these other things,
right.
When you really get down and look at it. So,
well, and like you said, hindsight, like you said, you didn't start out planning. You didn't start out with a plan B, but through trial and error, and hindsight's 2020, you recognize that you got to plan for contingencies. That's essential.
100%. Yeah. Yep.
Well, and you've done, and I I literally mean this. I totally somewhat live vicariously through you, and I'll put all the links to like your Facebook and how to follow you online. You've done really well for yourself, and you have I would have to say a compound. It's somewhere in Illinois, right? Isn't it?
I'm in the western part of the estate. I'm right between the Illinois and the Mississippi River. So you really you have to cross ferries to get over here to where I live. There's only one bridge that comes over here, and I'm very well fortified. I'm ready for I'm ready. I mean, I call it my Obama 401k. I'm ready for anything to come at me.
401. And it's absolutely beautiful. And it's, for people who are very into nature, camping, etc., you would love what Jonah's got going on. And so, and I guess you kind of answered this, with a lot of your roots, a lot of your growing up being kind of fused through the life, and being connected to Native American and really loving nature and being a part of nature. I guess in addition to that, you have, like, I don't know if you remember Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. You've got some Marlin Perkins out there on your compound. You've got wolves, you've got bison. I think you had a wallaby that didn't make it not too long ago. And you have a however many pound, very large pet black bear named Nibbles. Talk to us about the assembly of all of these animals that you have, brother.
Well, they don't come at once,
Right.
It starts with one rescue and then leads to another and then leads to another. So, my bear started with some poachers in Tennessee shot her family, and she was in a little wire cage, and she was getting ready to get fed to the dogs. When a friend of mine who knew I would take her, hornswaggled her away from these poachers at a gas station, or he was getting gas and they were getting gas next to him.
And how old was Nibbles at the time when this went down?
Nibbles at the time was, I'm going to say she was probably 2 weeks old, maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the real sad thing is, Jeff, is that she had two brothers that were in another wire cage, and he wasn't able to save them, and they were fed to this hunter's dogs, probably within half an hour. So but anyhow, I've had her for going on 7 years. No, going on 8 years. I think she's 8 years old now. So she weighs about 500 to 600 pounds. She's a female black bear, and that's the front door. So anyway, she lives in my backyard. I've got 10 rescued wolves, also in some big enclosures. Got a couple acres fenced off behind my house, and the wolves are pretty amazing. They howl every night. It's quite a wild time at my place, let me tell you.
Yes.
We don't, the Jehovah's Witnesses don't stick around really long.
You got to get there first. You got to get through like you said, the drawbridge and the moat. You know what I mean? You guys.
Oh yeah, I got it all. Well, I'm ready for anarchy.
Well, yes, you are, my friend. You absolutely are. You've got Thunderdome going on out there without the madness right now. But I hate to. I don't want to speak things into reality if that's how it happens, but I'm assuming you've thought about this. You've got some pretty hardcore animals out there, and specifically Nibbles. I remember I texted you or something, a message and something about what she was doing, and you're like, she thinks I'm her dad. Is there any? Do you have to always, people who work with tigers or lions? There's always that just keeping your head on a swivel moment. You're still dealing with a bear.
Sure. I'm telling you, 100%.
Okay.
I mean, you have kids, Jeff?
I do.
Okay. Are they teenagers?
24 and 14. So I'm in the midst of a teenager right now. I survived one of them, but I'm back down to do it again.
So when you survive a human teenager, usually you come out of that unscathed, right? Maybe you had a call or two to the state's attorney, something like this.
Shaved a few years off my life, but yeah.
Your insurance got canceled. Not a big deal. There's other insurance companies out there, Anyway, when Nibbles is in her teenage years right now, and right now, this teenager doesn't like her dad very much. So she's going through that same ugly phase that human beings go through. And so...
What does that look like? Obviously, with a child, with a human...
She's... I don't know. I've raised 4 kids, and... they all go through this stage where, first they love their parents and they're cuddly and they're affectionate and they crawl over you. And then they go through a kind of an indifferent phase. And then they go through a phase where you're not really cool. And then they go through a phase where they just don't like you.
But your kids can't eat your face off, right?
No, they can't. That's exactly the point I'm making, Jeffrey. You survived it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that you have to treat it a little differently when it's a 500-600 pound bear,
Mm.
So I I was just feeding her some apples right before I had to come back to the office for this call with you. And she's she's angry at me. She's unhappy with me. And I think it's sad because I think a lot of it is that, she wants me to live with her in her cage,
Yeah.
and I'm not. I live in a house with other human beings, and I think that there's like this resentment from her.
Is there any jealousy
That
because of the other animals that you give
Oh, for sure,
Tonka?
100%. She's a woman. I mean, it's going to happen. So,
Is there anything
I
like
mean,
with a? I mean,
also-
with a teenage, it's just par for the course, whether it's an animal or a human. Is there any? Like I said, you just have to keep your head on a swivel because is there anything you can really do to mitigate that behavior?
no, you just have to spend time with her, and you have to. It's kind of like it's like with your little human kids.
Yeah, yeah.
They decide when they want to be your friend. You can't make them be anything they don't want to be.
That's so
So it has
fascinating.
to be their idea, and they have to decide. And if you try to, if you force them into liking you, it doesn't last really long. And like I said, that doesn't work really well when you're talking about a 500-600 pound bear. So
Interesting.
I don't I until she got to be about 5 years old, I would wrestle her every day. I would throw her around. Once she got about 300 pounds, no longer could I really throw her around. It was about 300 pounds, which she's almost twice that now. But you just have to really be, you know, we only get one ticket, so I'm not going to lose my ticket in a cage with a bear,
Right, right.
and do that to her and me.
Have you?
So,
I mean, you obviously know what you're doing. Have you had people, neighbors, or just people who are aware of your situation, like, "Hey, dude, what are you doing? You got to, you know what I mean?" Trying to almost admonish you, thinking you.
I have some people that I do business with, that follow me on social media, and they say, hey, get my order out before you crawl in there and nibbles if you would, and that,
It's not
and
funny,
then,
but it's funny.
and it's not funny, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And it was nearly not a joke, but it is kind of a joke, but really not. So, so anyway, it's, animals are beautiful. They don't know what they are. They're innocent. I like animals a lot more than people. And, I have to have a job and I have to work and I'm a human being and I have to be able to support them because,
Yeah.
it probably costs better part of $50,000 a year to take care of these animals of mine. But it's therapy for me. I need it. I need it in my soul.
Right.
And they're wonderful, beautiful creatures. And not all of our animals are rescued, but a lot of them are. And a lot of these animals that I have, they would not be on this earth right now if it wasn't.
Well, it's very interesting too. The animal-child relationship. Oftentimes we think as parents we're the ones doing all the teaching to our kids, but oftentimes our kids teach us a lot of stuff, patience, et cetera, et cetera. And I can only imagine, like you said, how therapeutic that would be to have that connection with such wild animals, with such animals.
Therapy. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's so. I literally I need it. When I'm gone at trade shows, I'll be gone for a week sometimes. And by the end, I'm just thinking about my animals all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've got kids, I've got a wife, I've got a family that misses me, and that's what I do. But animals are like this therapy. It's like you're starting to miss your therapist,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't have to pay this one, I just have to feed
Right.
it.
You just have to say you just got to drop $50K a year to feed it.
100%. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool, man. And again, I thank you so much for your time. Well, no one has a crystal ball, but where do you see yourself, the company? Where do you guys see yourselves in the next 5-10 years? Just keep slow and steady, and just how you're doing now, or you got some big plans up your sleeve? What's the future hold for you guys?
Well, business-wise, my company's still metamorphosizing. About 12 years ago, my company shifted, and my company was a die-hard, novelty, fun, jokey gag gift company, like many of them are. And, you know, it was about the time when Obama was in office, and you know, he was telling everybody that they shouldn't be working so hard and they should be getting stuff for free. And you know, there was a lot of division that started at that time in this country, and I knew it wasn't going. This is not a racial thing I'm saying; it's a business thing I'm saying. None of that leads to like a good place, you know.
Right.
And I knew that there was a lot of money being made from this division, and the government was going to keep doing this, you know, not pointing the finger at anybody, just the government.
Divide and control, man. It's been a thing for a very long time.
And when people make less money because they don't work and everything's expensive, they don't travel. And when they don't travel, these souvenir shops take it on the chin. And when the souvenir shops take it on the chin, they stop paying the people that they buy their stuff from, you know. I kind of saw all this writing on the wall that this sector of the market was very vulnerable to this kind of political change that was getting ready to take place, and really over the last 10 years has just really changed the dynamics of the country. So I decided, you know, about 12 years ago that I was going to change the focus of this company and the direction of it, and I was going to start focusing on utilitarian products that people had to buy, not fun products that people could go to a souvenir shop at, you know, wherever they were going on vacation, and getting, but items that people had to buy because it made their life better or easier, or it solved a problem that they had.
Right.
So I've completely changed, and my items that I'm investing in for the last, probably a solid 8 years, all these items solve problems and make your life better. And they go to different customers than the previous ones that supported my company for almost 20 years. My biggest companies that I sold to, I don't even sell to them anymore. I've completely, you know, changed the direction. So that's a lot of what I'm doing. You know, as far as like 5 years from now till today, what does the company look like? I think it's going to be very similar to what I am right now. I don't want to grow a whole lot, but there's all this growth potential sitting right in front of me.
Yeah.
And just the way my mind is, I'll be damned if I'm not going to grab some of it.
Yeah, there's no sense capping yourself, right?
Well, you have to sometimes, you know. I'm the largest employer in my little county here in Illinois. This county only has 5,000 people in it. It's about 50 miles long, and I get very, very good employees and really, really awesome, high quality employees. But there's not a big wealth of people to choose from to run your business, and you need some levels of skill to grow businesses to, you know, past certain plateaus
for sure
in your workforce. So, you know, I don't know how much I can grow just from a manpower standpoint.
Yeah, that
I'm
makes
adding
sense.
about 6,000 foot to my warehouse right now, like as we speak, because of 2 more product lines I'm taking on, and I don't have the space for them. But I don't know, you know, at some point I need to be content with the items that I'm doing, and not, you know, try to pull the reins back from expanding. I'm launching 4 new products in the last, you know, year and a half, which is a lot for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess overextending, you know, with the whole retooling, if you will, and creating, like you said, more utilitarian products. Obviously, the business is expanding, but there is, like you said, got to be a certain limit or a plateau, so you're not overextending, you know, your resources to be able to accommodate the expansion.
Yeah, there's a strategic thing. You need to know when you're reaching your potential or when you're in your sweet spot. And if you try to do too much, you know, I know this, I'll fail if I attempt to do too much. I failed before in business, and it was always when I tried to do too much, and I couldn't do a good job at the things I was doing, and I knew I could fail like anybody else.
Well, like you said, through the trial and error and been doing it long enough, it sounds like you found your stride and you're in your sweet spot. I wish you nothing but more success, man. I think I really enjoyed this conversation. I haven't talked with you more so in depth. So I mean, there's a lot to you, man, and a lot going on, and it's more. There's more to you, more than meets the eye, like Transformers, man. It's more than just the business. Like you're very connected to what you do, and like you say, your animals. I think it's really cool, man. You're a really cool cat, man.
Yep. Well, I appreciate it.
Well,
Every
shout
day
out.
is opportunity.
Yes, and another day in paradise, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out in addition to BillyBobProducts.com. Shout out anywhere where they can follow you, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you might want to throw something out.
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook. What's that? Nibbles the Bear. Nibbles the Bear is on Instagram.
Nibbles has an Instagram page.
And then flylid.com is my new product line for fly control. Fly-lid.com. I'm being told by the smart people in my office.
There we go. We'll add it to the description of the video here.
Yep.
Well,
and yeah.
Well, again, man, thank you so much for your time. I know, the day is probably still early for you, even though it is winding down. I know you still have a lot to do. Emily, if you're listening, thank you so much for helping facilitate this conversation over there at Billy Bob.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, Jonah White, thank you again so much for your time, my friend. I'd love to catch up with you, man, a few months down the line, see how everything's are going, see how the expansion's going, see how the new products are going, and just see what you're up to, brother.
All right. You take care.
All right, you too. Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure. Peace and so much love. Respect.